Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Saskatchewan Pulse Growers, DuPont Ferguson Fungicide, and Nodulator XL.
So I'm here with Ken Sapsford, who's a research assistant with the Department of Plant Sciences, and we're going to talk about cleavers and controlling cleavers and pulses. Ken, how's the abundance of cleavers? Are they moving in the province, or are they spreading?
What we find is cleavers is a weed that does like moisture, and over the last few years we've had an abundance of moisture in a lot of the prairies, and so we're seeing cleavers move from their typical region, which is in the black soil zone, down into the dark brown soil zone because of the excess moisture, and so they are becoming more abundant across the prairies.
So what are some management strategies we need to consider with cleavers and pulses?
One of the big problems with cleavers in pulse crops is that a number of the cleavers are taken as showing resistance to group 2 herbicides. And the herbicides that's typically used in peas in the black soil zone for control of weeds is Odyssey, Pursuit, and those are group 2 herbicides, and the cleavers have shown some resistance to those. And so we are seeing that those products are not controlling them anymore. Now we've got to try to find an alternative herbicides to do some of that control of those, or else we're not going to be able to grow pulses in those regions.
So is there a lot of work being done in finding those kind of chemicals?
We've been working with the Saskatchewan pulse growers for the last number of years, looking at alternative herbicides that we could possibly use. And we have found that when we get onto the soils in the dark brown soil zone and in the gray soil zone, that a product like Authority, which is a group 14, will do an excellent job on controlling cleavers. And so that is one option they have. Edge is another option. Cleavers are only listed as suppression, but farmers may have to go back to using that pre-emerge product like Edge to get some suppression on those cleavers as we get into the black soil zone, because the Authority will not control cleavers when we get into organic matter levels over 6%. And so in the black soil zone, the Authority is getting tied up by the organic matter, and therefore it's not controlling the weeds. So we need to find some alternatives, and we are looking at that right now with a number of our research trials.
And should we be crop scouting right now for cleavers?
Well, cleavers are a weed that actually some of them will germinate in the fall, and because of our no-till seeding practices now and with good snow cover, they are surviving over the winter under the snow. And yeah, so we can actually find cleavers early in the spring once the snow moves, and they are already in anywhere from a 5 to an 8 whorl stage. We'll also see spring germinating cleavers, and that's where the majority of the cleavers are that are up in crop. And so therefore you need to be able to look at your fields, you need to know what's out there, and especially if you're going to be seeding a pulse crop, there is a good chance that some of those cleavers could be group 2 resistance, because we're seeing an increase in the abundance of resistant cleavers at the lab when samples are getting sent in.
So you talked a bit about staging. Can you explain to us maybe some staging and when we should be getting out there with some herbicide?
Yeah, if you look at the ground here, you can see that we do have some cleavers that are already here. It's branched. It is already into about the 6 whorl stage on about 5 or 6 branches. So that cleavers obviously germinated last fall, and it has survived through the winter, and that is at a stage right now. If you look at the label of any of the herbicides that have cleavers on label, it is past the stage that will be controlled. One of the good things is that we found from our research is that products like glyphosate, Clean Start, any combinations of glyphosate plus heat, they will control this cleaver. It doesn't seem to be resistant to any of those herbicides, and we are getting good control of it. At the same time as we're seeing this one at that stage, we're also seeing cleavers at the cotyledon stage, just coming into the first whorl. There's Some cleavers here that are they're into a full first whorl, coming into the second whorl, and even some that are fully into a second whorl stage. And those cleavers are very susceptible to the glyphosate as well. So the burn-off treatment that you use prior to seeding will do a good job of controlling the cleavers that we're seeing here. But what you need to do is watch for your in-crop application, because a lot of the products, like a Basagran, will state that it'll control cleavers up to the 3 whorl stage. Well, the cleavers are hitting a 3 whorl stage very early in their growing conditions, and quite often farmers are out there applying their in-crop herbicide later than that, and so they're not getting as good a control with some of these products as they would expect, and that's because of the staging. One of the options that we're looking at for farmers in the black soil zone, where the authority gives us some suppression because it's getting tied up in organic matter, is we're looking at trials where we're going to be putting down the authority or a high rate of heat pre-seeding of the peas, and then we're coming in over top of that in crop with a Viper or a Basagran, and seeing if we can take 2 products, a pre-seed product and an in-crop product, that are each giving us some suppression of the cleavers, but if we put them both on in that year, can we move that control up into that 80 to 90% control? We're hoping to see that. We just started those trials this year, so we'll maybe have some better answers for you in a year or 2 from now.
And as far as other management strategies go, so maybe not chemicals, what should we be thinking about there?
Well, one of the things that you always have to look at is a good crop rotation. And you take and put in a crop like a cereal that's very competitive. There's other different herbicide options in that cereal crop, of course. And that is one of the main things. Varying the time of seeding on a specific field so that you're not always seeding it early every year or late every year, allowing a weed to go on to further development prior to controlling it. And so using all of those strategies is an excellent option. The one thing that hasn't been used a lot in the West in the last few years is incorporating forages. If you're going to take and rotate through a forage crop for a few years, that's an excellent weed control strategy that doesn't involve herbicides.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing your findings on this.
You're welcome.